subscribers. Shout out to the TV, Guy Triple C. Shout out, shout out. Uh, I'll be building on the Jim Crow, what it really was, and how it deteriorate our people as far as their status, how it was used to reclassify Indians to black or African American or colored, okay? And this is the Race Card Project website. Shout out, fair use. So it's titled Paper Genocide, Pinnacle NC, right? So I think that's North Carolina. All right, so let's get to it. How Jim Crow practiced paper genocide against Native American Indians. Jim Crow laws were a set of oppressive laws that reclassified Native American Indians into category of colored. Jim Crow reached their greatest influence during the decades of 1910, 1920, and 1930. Among them were hypodescent laws defining as black anyone with suspected black ancestry, or even those with a very small portion of black ancestry. Tennessee adopted such a one-drop statute, right? So the one-drop statute, right, in 1910, and Louisiana soon followed, then Texas, right, then Arkansas, right, in 1911 Mississippi, and in 1917 North Carolina, in 1923, right? So they all took part in paper genocide, all right? Fact, the state of North Carolina vital records began using the one-drop rule law in labeling Indians colored before Walter Plecker initiated it in Virginia. Okay, so North Carolina and those other states, Louisiana, all of them implemented the one-drop rule before even Walter Plecker came on the scene, all right? Birth records were also delayed in states enforcing the one-drop rule. They were filed late to make these oppressive racial changes. The Virginia law, which allowed for delay birth registration, declared its own purpose differently. Its formal title was an act to preserve racial integrity, and it went into effect in 1924. Remember, in 1924, they had what? The Ellis Islands, right? This is when they opened up the Ellis Islands, and millions of Europeans came in, right? Matter of fact, I'm gonna slide over to that article. Find it, one moment. I'm gonna find Oh, during 1924, there was a huge influx of European migrants, right, coming in. And during this time, that's when they did a lot of paper genocide. All right. So kind of taking long. Okay. So Ellis Island is a historical site that opened in 1892 as an immigration station, a purpose it served for more than 60 years until it closed in 1954, right? Okay. See, so located at the mouth of Hudson River between New York and New Jersey, Ellis Island saw millions of newly arrived immigrants pass through its doors. In fact, it has been estimated that close to 40% of all U.S. citizens, 40%, okay, can trace at least one of their ancestors to Ellis Island, okay? You dig? So, paper genocide ran rampant during these times. When Ellis Island opened, a great change was taking place in U.S. immigration. Few arrivals were coming from Northern and Western Europe, Germany, Ireland, Britain, and Scandinavian countries. Pay attention to Scandinavian countries, alright? As more and more immigrants poured in from Southern and Eastern Europe. Among this new generations were Jews escaping from political and economical oppression, Tsarist Russia and Eastern Europe, and Italians escaping poverty in their country. So the reason why I pull this up is to show you that during this whole early 1900s, 1924, you know what I'm saying? Check this out. From 1900 to 1914, the peak years of Ellis Island's operation, an average of 1,900 people passed through the immigration station every day. Most successfully passed through in a matter of hours, but others could be detained for days or weeks. Many immigrants remained in New York while others traveled by barge to railroad stations in Hoboken or Jersey City, New Jersey, right? And their way to destination across the country, okay? So these are a few of how they looked, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because these immigrants that came in, they took the status, our status, right? Okay? And they put them on the reservations, right? So let's slide back over here. So what I'm trying to show you is that between where it says delayed birth registration declared its own purpose differently. Informal title was an act to preserve racial integrity, and it went into effect in 1924. This also occurred in North Carolina as well as in other states, right? Virginia began the one-drop rule in 1924, right? Alabama and Georgia in 1927, and Oklahoma in 1931, okay? During the same period, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, Utah retained their old blood fraction statutes de jure, but amend these fractions 1/16, 1/32 to be equivalent to one drop de facto, okay? The one-drop rule was overturned in 1967 by U.S. Supreme Court. The one-drop rule is illegal, right? But before this time, many native Indians were not allowed by law to claim legal status as Indian due to white vital records officials and census takers forcing the one-drop rule and through government records suppressed the Indians' native blood ancestry on official documents. So when people ask why didn't natives have records changed back to Indian, a law prevented this from being done, okay? And any Indian born before 1967 who wasn't living on a government regulated Indian reservation, all right? So the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is why I bring up Ellis Island, okay? Because this flows so smoothly with it. All right, and it was during this time that the most immigrants came through Ellis Island. All right, I was just trying to share it with you guys so you could see it's no play. All right, are in a community with a massive Indian population was forcefully listed as colored all right, colored by vital records offices. We are not black. We are not white. We are not Latino. Okay. So this is just an article I read just to refresh your memories of what really took place. And yeah, so I'm digging more on Ellis Island for a bit. I mean, I digged on it on previous videos, but for you, like, you know, how deep the rabbit hole goes and how everything correlates, you know what I'm saying? So I wonder if I could pull it up. So as I was reading earlier, in terms of like during the time of the Jim Crow, this was a time there's a lot of European immigrants coming in, right? And these people were taking the names of the Indians, all right? So right here, an extensive free listing of manifests for a ship that arrived in New York between 1892 and 1924, okay? That's the same year Walter Plecker did that whole birth certificate hijack, all right? The years during which Ellis Island was America's primary, right, immigrant processing center, and where 12 million immigrants were processed, okay? This manifest archive has been expanded beyond the peak years at Ellis Island to include Port of New York passenger records from 1820 to 1957, okay? So during these times, you had the Reconstruction era. So I'm gonna show you the Reconstruction era, right? I'm gonna show you how they orchestrate everything, all right? What they're trying to do now with this reset to confuse you. You know what I'm saying? To take the Indians' resource, our resource, okay? So check this out. So during this time, all that was going on, the Reconstruction era, Walter Plecker situation, you know what I'm saying? So Reconstruction era was the period in American history which lasted from 1863 to 1877. It was a significant chapter in history of American civil rights, right? The term has two applications. The first applied to the complete history of the entire country from 1865 to 1877, right? The American Civil War. The second to attempt this transformation, right? So there was a lot of things going on leading up to that, leading up to the Jim Crow era, right? Leading up to the Ellis Island situation, right? Leading up to all of that, right? So everything was already put in place, so your identity could be snatched, all right, and you be reclassified, okay? As I just read to you here, okay? Down here. Let me see. It said, Indian born before 1967 who wasn't living on government regulated reservations